Hello, this is me, Faiz Mawandar. My number is 2519004, and I'm here to tell you that learning vocabulary in another language. So, before we jump into our section, anyone knows maybe what is the word means or the vocabulary means in just in general one? Anyone? So we can say word and vocabulary is connected in each other because actually they are need each other. Vocabulary need to be spelled, and something spelled need words, and words for be useful need to be a vocabulary. So basically, they are need each other and they are connected each other. Now, because you already know what is the vocabulary and the word uh, connected about, we can jump into our section. So, knowing word is basically how to know word like you want to know person. So, actually, word is not an isolated unit, but it can fit in anything in the spelling or writing. One of the major ideas explored in this chapter is the relationship and boundaries between learning individual item and learning system of knowledge. For example, like it's possible to learn to recognize the form of a word simply by memorizing its form. So if you want to learn something that in shape or in a view of uh, line, or it's like a poem, you can learn it easier than you just learn word by word. It's better to learn by pattern and shape instead you are learning one item by one item. Next, we have learning burden. The learning burden of a word is the amount of effort required to learn it. Different words have different learning burdens for learner with different language background. So it's like you want to learn something, but it just cannot. Here's the material, here's the way to learn it, here you go. No, you still have to make sure uh, how how it's spelled in your own neighborhood or something that can help you learning it easier, not just learning and say something better, but you still have to learn it by the way that make you comfort to learn it. Each of the aspect of what it means to know a word can contribute to the learning burden of a word. The general participle of learning burden, Nation 1990, it's said by people, is that the more a word represent pattern and knowledge that the learner are already familiar with, the like the lighter its learning burden. So I just say that way. Um, if you want to learn something, in this case, the word and their friend, uh, you just cannot. Hey, Mister from England, I want to learn. Can you teach me? No, just make sure you got what you want to learn in your around, and you can learn it better. Look, you can learn it easier. You can learn that material in the way you can feel the enjoyment. The receptive productive distinction. The validity of the receptive or productive distinction is, in most cases, depends on its resemblance to the distinction between the receptive skill of listening and reading and the productive skill of speaking and writing. Res- Receptive carries the idea that we receive language input from others through listening or reading and try to comprehend it. The term passive for learning and reading and active for speaking and writing are sometimes used as synonyms for receptive and productive, said by Mira 1990, Carson 1995, and Lauver 1998. But some object to this term as they do not see listening and reading as having some of the other characteristics which can be attached to the term passive. So the term passive, like listening and reading, and active, the uh, term of active for speaking and writing sometimes use the other word to be receptive and productive. But some object in this term, they didn't want to use listening and reading to having some characteristic from the others by the item passive. Essentially, receptive vocabulary use involve perceiving the form of a word while listening or reading and retrieve its meaning. Productive vocabulary use involve wanting to express a meaning through speaking or writing and retrieve and producing the appropriate spoken or written word form. Melka Row 1982 said that show the inconsistent use of the term receptive and productive in relation to test item and degree of knowing a word and consider that the distinction is arbitrary and will be more useful treated as a scale of knowledge. Next, we got the scope of the receptive productive distinction. The term receptive and productive apply to a variety of kinds of language knowledge and use. When they are applied to a vocabulary, this term cover all the aspect of what is involved in knowing a word. So the scope of receptive and productive distinction are can be applied to a variety of kinds of language knowledge and use. So it's like a tool using in any kind of term and shape. And the from the point of view in receptive knowledge and use, knowing the word undeveloped involve one, being able to recognize the word when it is heard and being familiar with its written form. So that is the recognize when it is met in reading. And the next is recognizing that it is made up of the part under developed and id and being able to relate of this part to its meaning. The next is knowing that undeveloped signal a particular meaning, and the next is knowing what the word means in the particular context in which it has just occurred. knowing the concept behind the word, which it which will allow understanding in a variety of contexts. And the next is knowing that there are related words like like overdeveloped, backward, and challenged. Being able to recognize that underdeveloped has been used correctly in sentence in which occurs. The next is being able to recognize that words such as territories and areas are typical collocation. The next is knowing that underdeveloped is not an uncommon word and is not a pejorative word from the point of view of knowledge that we know and use. That is the several things that maybe we need to know. And the other several things that we need to know is being able to say it with correct pronunciation, including stress point in the word, in a word, being able to write it with correct spelling, being able to construct it using the right word part in their appropriate form, being able to produce the word to express the meaning underdeveloped, being able to produce the word in different contexts to express the range of meaning of underdeveloped, being able to produce synonym and opposites for underdeveloped, being able to use the word correctly in an original sentence. It's happened when you are using American accent. Being able to produce words that commonly occur with it, being able to decide to use or not use the word to suit the degree of formality of the situation at present developing is more acceptable than underdeveloped, which carry a slightly negative meaning. So um, we got those. In this case, we got the several possible explanations which are probably complementary rather than competing. It's said by Ellis and Beaton, 1993, part 548 until 549. It is the element of knowledge, the practice explanation, the access, and the motivation. So, what is the actually of the amount of knowledge that we just said that before? And that is produce learning is more difficult because it requires extra learning of new spoken or written output pattern. See Crow 1986 for a similar argument. This will be particularly noticeable for language which use different writing system for from the first language and which use some different sound or different combination. So it's like you are learning the same thing but using different accent or different stress. It's just like that. And the next is we got the practice explanation in the practice explanation in normal language learning condition. Receptive use generally gets more practice than produce use, and this might be the important factor in accounting for a difference in receptive and productive vocabulary size, particularly in measure of total vocabulary size. And the next is we got the access. The explanation about the access is told by Alice and Beaton, 1993, page 548 until 549, suggests that a new foreign language word in the early states of learning has only one simple link to use L, transition, the receptive direction. And the last we get the motivation. Explanation about the motivation is learning are not motivated for a variety of reasons, including socio-cultural background, to use certain kind of knowledge productively. Carson, 1995. Thus, although some vocabulary might be known and could be used productively, it's not used and remains in the learner's passive vocabulary. Not that for this from this point of view, for some words, the receptive or productive distinction is not a knowledge continuum, but a distinction between motivated and unmotivated vocabulary. So that's all. The next is will be described by my friend. Thank you.